I had just finished a dome here in Mexico that was being shipped to Rome to be on top of the Basilica of Santa Maria degli Angeli, which is the last architectural work of Michelangelo. So we had an event in the university before the dome was shipped to Rome for installation. And it was a big thing because, as you can imagine, not every day you get to do something that goes on a building of Michelangelo. So Michel was invited at this event, but he did not come. He did not know me. And 3 months later, the dome was inaugurated in Mexico City, and it was shipped to Rome. 3 months later, I was in my studio in Mexico City, and at 1 a.m., I get a call from this gentleman here, Michel, and he says, Narcissus, I was actually going, he didn't know me, but my phone number was on the invitation. So he says, Narcissus, I just was going to bed, and I noticed this envelope unopened by my bed. So I opened it, and it was a dome. The dome it was an invitation to the dome event in Mexico City. He says, well, I thought this was a sign of God because tomorrow morning I am putting cement over a dome, and so this envelope makes me think that maybe it should be glass and maybe you should do a dome.
Well, as you know, the story of the mountain, no? This mountain has been for me a revelation, a transformation, a revolution in my mind, in my consciousness. And I learned to obey, because if you don't obey, the consequences are terrible. So I was building the hotel that was built in 9 months. 9 months since we started until the end, 64 bedrooms, 64 pools, the biggest spa in Latin America, 1,000 people ballroom, crazy things to do in 9 months, So that night I was looking at my old mail because I didn't have time to review the mail. I see that this wonderful dome, and I saw the picture, and the spirit of the mountain told me, you have to call Narcissus Quagliata to make a dome in this space. This space was much smaller, already built much smaller, but it didn't have a ceiling yet. And the spirit of the mountain said to me internally, call Narcissus Quagliata now.
I tried to resist. In other words, Michel Domit called me, and I knew who he was. I said, well, Michel, it's wonderful to know you by the phone, but I'm going to Europe in 3 or 4 days, and I have a lot to do. Why don't I see you when I come back? And Michel said, no, you have to come tonight to Valle de Bravo. I said, tonight? I said, yes, because tomorrow I'm putting cement on a structure, and we have to be there by 8 o'clock, because at that time we have to make a decision if you're going to do a dome of glass or if it's going to be cement. Well, this was so crazy that I had to do it. It's sort of like when something that crazy happens, you have to say, okay, I've got to check this out. He said, well, here it is. What do you think? So we looked at the plans, and I said, quite honestly, Michel, the space is a little too small. A dome would look beautiful here, but it's also a little bit too pushed toward the building. The eaves of the building would cover some of the dome. So Michel said, if you're going to do the dome, we're going to knock everything down, and we're going to do it the right size, and we're going to push it out. You meet somebody at 1 a.m. by phone, by 5 a.m. you are in their jacuzzi on a lake you've never seen. By 8 a.m. you're on a job site. And by 9 a.m. you have redesigned the space. So by 10:30, I said the obvious thing. So I said, Michel, how are you going to pay for this? And Michel says, how about with land? And I say, land? She says, yeah, you give me the art, I give you the land. So I said, which land? He turns and he says, this mountain, This mountain has lots of land. It's got many lots. Pick the one you want, and that's it. So I said, okay. So my story starts from there, because in truth, I didn't expect to come and live here. I mean, I was excited about doing the dome. I always love to do another new art piece. But I walked the mountain, I picked the piece at the very top, where the road didn't reach it at that time. Then I fell in love with the land, and I decided to build my house and studio here, and I did. Yeah. So I live here, and I'll live here for the rest of my life. So all I do is I put some colored blown glass in between the sun and us so that it creates these wonderful reflections. The symbols are quite clear. There is a man falling backward. The man is full of stars, and there is a tree growing out of his chest, and it's the tree of life. So the man is made out of space, and there is a tree that grows out of him. There is a woman in a womb, and she's dreaming, and you can see her dream is inside of her. There is a bird flying in her head, and there's clouds. Can you see it? And she's in a womb, and the womb is on fire. There is a woman turning into a fish. Actually, a planet being born. The center is a star. It's a 16-point star. Well, we divided it together. We decided that this was going to be 16. Well, we did it, I think, more architecturally because it seemed the sensible way to divide. Around it there is 8 special flowers. Each one is very different. It's like a rondel. One is a rose. Each one has a separate design. I want to say one thing about this space. For me, the experience of doing this was very important. Of course, first of all, because it was a pleasure doing the work. But I learned 2 or 3 things. I mean, one, doing this project affected my life completely. In other words, I built my house, I now live here. I think of the landscape that I see from my place and the mountain itself as part of me. So the mountain has an amazing amount of power. And I have been working now in my studio, which is at the very top. And I can feel the energy just compressing and coming right up, right through my studio. Wow. Because I'm on the crest. My studio is on one side, the mountain falls one way. On the other side, the mountain falls the other way. So if I clear my mind, like Michel says, I just empty my mind and then see what happens. And I can just feel the electricity of the mountain going right through the space I work in. So it's a very powerful experience. So that is one thing. But in terms of the work itself, you must notice that the light is extraordinary. And based on this project, because the sun here is very clear, it's very intense, having put this color in this space with the white is what inspired me to then design a work that I still haven't built. I'm still trying to find a place that will sell it. I'm in discussions in Australia, in Perth. I'm in discussions perhaps here in Mexico, and so I am just at the beginning. But I invented on the base of this a space which is perfectly spherical, which is made for the pure enjoyment of light itself, without any distractions, no stairs, no nothing. So there will be the glass, scientific instruments for projections that deflect the rays of the sun and project eclipses and stuff like that. And the pure light. So before I die, I've got to do this.